What up, y'all? Welcome to Throwdown Thursday. We're not doing any beat making today. We're talking about my other passion, losing money on sports betting. In these episodes, please do not go broke taking my advice for picks. This will not make you rich. I just love sports betting. We got NFL going on this weekend. We got college football. We got the NBA playoffs, the finals, and we have the presidential election, which is tons of fun to bet on. Let's get into it. All right, so here are the power rankings that I've come up with for the NFL. This is just how I feel teams are compared to any other average opponent. I would lay 10 points with the Chiefs against an average opponent, and I would give 10 points to the Jets because the Jets are definitely the worst team in the league right now. I feel bad for all the Jets fans out there. So let's go ahead and look through the lines. All right, I like to use this website, OddsShark, to check out the lines. It'll have all the different sports books like Bovada, BetOnline, and all these different ones you can check out. So the Thursday night game tonight is an absolute poop fest. It is the Broncos versus the Jets. Opened up with Jets giving minus 2.5, but then it's been bet down, or it's been put down to 1 on pretty much all these sports books. So I got the Broncos at plus 5.5 in their power ranking, and the Jets at plus 10. I'm giving the Jets a minus 1 for being at home. Locke is out, and Ripon is the starting quarterback, which is the only reason that Jets are laying points right now. So the Jets are a really bad team, but because of the injury to the Broncos quarterback, they made the Jets the favorite. There's no reason that I'm going to spend my money on the Jets, so probably going to stay off tonight's game. Next one's going to be Bears versus the Colts. The Bears actually opened up as 1.5 point favorites, but it's been moved to Bears plus 3 at home. In my power rankings, I got the Colts at minus 5 and the Bears at plus 2. Even though the Bears are 3-0, they don't look that great. They probably should have lost that game to the Lions in week 1. The only thing the Bears really have going for them right now is that they upgraded their quarterback from Nick Foles from Mitch Trubisky. Trubisky's terrible. He's done being a starter. I got the Bears in what I call the poop group right here, which is a bunch of teams that have talent and should be good, but do not play to that level, which includes the Vikings, Texans, Bears, Falcons, Browns. Actually, the Texans are probably the least talented of that group, but teams like the Falcons, the Browns, the Eagles, they got tons of good players on their roster. They just can't get it done. The Vikings got some talent, but they have too many holes on defense, and Kirk Cousins is not playing up to what his contract says right now. I got the Colts actually being a pretty solid team. I don't know how they blew that first game against the Jags, but they looked strong last week. I got the Colts at minus 5. So with the Bears, I'm giving them 1 point for being at home, but I'm giving them plus 0.5 point for Tariq Cohen. He's out. My spread on this game is actually 6.5. Vegas has it at 3 and 2 some places. So I'm actually going to look at betting the Colts in this situation. Typically, I wouldn't bet against the Bears at home, but home field advantage isn't the same this year with COVID. So I might have to look into putting money on the Colts on Sunday. Next up are the Cowboys versus the Browns. Dallas has kind of been in trouble with some injuries. Sean Lee and Van Der Esch are out. That's 2 of their 3 good linebackers. Tyron Smith looks like he's questionable. So I gave the boys plus 1 for their injuries. And I got the Browns are in the poop group, so they're only a plus 2. I got the Cowboys as being a somewhat strong team, right below the Pats, tied with the Titans, and then above the Cardinals. So my spread on this game is 6. Vegas has it at about 5 or 4.5, depending on which book you go to. I don't feel good enough about laying a lot of points with the Cowboys. Rather take them when they're an underdog or if they're just beating up on a really crappy team. Browns are in the poop group. I don't think they're a terrible team, and they are 2-1, but I don't feel like putting any money on the Browns. Duh. All right, next we got the Texans hosting the Vikings. Opened up with the Texans plus 1. Now the Texans are minus 4. Both of these teams are also part of the poop group. So I got the Vikings and the Texans at plus 2. I'm giving the Texans a minus 1 for being at home. So my spread is Texans minus 1. Vegas has Texans minus 4, minus 4.5. According to the numbers, at least my numbers, I should take the Vikings, but the Vikings have just been beat up early in games this year, and they've just somehow managed to come back and make it close, but there's nothing about the Vikings right now that makes me want to put money on them. I'm going to go ahead and pass. Next up, we got the Lions hosting the Saints. Opened up at 6. It's been bet down to 4.5. According to my power rankings, I still have the Saints as one of the top teams in the league. I know they've been getting beat up on the media on ESPN, but I just think they're overreacting right now. The Saints are still an extremely talented team. They were beating up Breeze for not being able to throw, but he still threw for like 300 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Packers. I think their defense is slightly overrated. They got a bunch of talented names on the defense, but it seems like last year and this year they're still able to give up a lot of points. They don't seem like a lockdown defense. They're kind of the same they've always been. They're really good offense. They are selective and when they're good on defense. But yeah, I got the Saints as a -7. I got the Lions, one of the worst teams in the league, +4.5. I mean, they got nobody on their team. They lost some corners from last year. I mean, Stafford's the only one that's really that good. They definitely pulled out a miracle against the Cardinals. No one really saw that one coming. Picked off Kyler Murray a bunch of times, but I don't know if that's because the Lions defense is good or more of just Kyler Murray being young and throwing interceptions. The one real issue with the Saints in this game is they're just missing people. Ty Montgomery's out. Cook looks like he's banged up. Thomas has been questionable. He's still coming off an ankle injury. Davenport's questionable. So I'm giving the Saints a plus of a 0.5 point for their injuries, and I'm giving Lions -1 for being at home. So my spread is Saints by 10. Vegas only has Saints by 4, 4.5. I would definitely consider taking New Orleans. Again, I think the media has been beating them up, and they're calling Drew Brees washed and this and that, but this Lions team really is giving me nothing, and the only thing they've done this year is blow a game against the Bears and beat probably an overhyped Cardinals team. I mean, the Cardinals are decent, but I think the Saints are still going to smash them, so I'll definitely be looking at that one on Sunday. Speaking of the Cardinals, they are playing the Panthers this week. Opened up with the Panthers as a 1-point favorite. It's been flipped. Panthers are actually getting 3.5 right now at home. Cardinals are actually having some injury issues. Hopkins looks a little banged up, and Buda Baker is out with a thumb. So I'm going to give the Cards a +1 for their injuries, and I get the Panthers -1 for being at home. So with my numbers, it looks like the Cards should be just a 1.5 point favorite, but Vegas has them in a 3.5 point favorite. So I do kind of like the Panthers getting points, especially with that 3.5 rather than just a 3. Helps avoid a push. I might be looking at the Panthers this Sunday. We'll have to see how things look Sunday morning. Next up, we got the Skins hosting the Ravens. Opened up with the Skins being a 10-point dog. Now it's been bet up to 13. Sounds about right. Chase Young got hurt. He's out this game. The Ravens are one of the best teams in the league. Haskins for Washington does not look like he's going to be the guy. He is from Ohio State, my favorite college team, but he doesn't look like he got it, unfortunately. Since the Ravens are coming off a short week, I gave them a +1. Typically, if teams are playing on a short week, they're a little bit more tired. Their body has less to recover, so I try to factor in points to account for that. Skins get -1 for being at home. My spread is 13.5. Vegas has it at 13 right now, so the line seems right. I'm going to pass on that one. Buccaneers hosting the Chargers. Opened at -6.5. It's been up to a touchdown. Chargers looked really banged up right now. Their tackle's banged up. Chris Harris is out for 4 to 6 weeks. Tyrod Taylor had his lung punctured by his own coach in some friendly fire. Melvin Ingram is on the IR. Joey Bosa is questionable. Mike Williams is questionable. So I got Chargers as kind of being an average team right in the middle of 0, and I got the Bucks at -5.5, tied with the Bills and just slightly above the Colts. So my spread on this game is 7.5 with the Bucks, and Vegas has it at 7 right now. So again, probably going to stay off that game. Next up, we got Dolphins hosting the Seahawks. I have the Seahawks as one of the better teams in the league. I have the Dolphins as one of the worst teams in the league. I don't think they're as bad as the Jets, but I'm trying to find the team that's second worst, which is somewhere between the Giants, Jags, and Dolphins. All these teams do not look good. Seahawks have some injury issues. Josh Gordon is out indefinitely, but he has been for the last 3 years, 4 years, 7 years. I don't know. It seems like he never plays, but he's still amazing. Irvin's out for the season. Jamal Adams is questionable. He was sitting out last game against the Cowboys. So I gave the Seahawks a +1 for their injuries. Give the Dolphins a -1 for being at home. Typically, you give home teams a 3-point bump for being at home, but because of COVID right now and not really having any fans in the stands, it's just not as good of an advantage as it was. So I personally just make it a point just because the other team does have to travel and they're kind of out of their own circumstance. And I mean, there's a couple fans in the stands. So my spread on this game is Seahawks by 11.5. Vegas has this at less than a touchdown in most places right now. Probably going to go with the Seahawks on Sunday. I have no problem throwing money on Russell Wilson. Dude's playing like an absolute monster. DJ Metcalf is a man-child, and they got Lockett. The Seahawks defense, again, they're a little banged up, and they don't really have a great pass rush, so teams are going to be able to come back on them and score, but I got no problem betting on Wilson, baby. Next up, we got the Bengals and Jags. Real barn burner right here. Although Joe Burrow has been fun to watch so far. I mean, that was a big question coming into the season. Can this dude translate from college to pros? And he's doing it already on an absolutely garbage squad with a terrible offensive line that is playing like they hate the man and they want to see him dead. And so I got these teams again at the bottom of the league. Bengals are probably slightly better than the Jags only because of Joe Burrow. Jags got some injury issues, so I gave them a plus half of a point. So my spread on this game is Bengals by 2.5. Vegas has it at -3. I mean, that's pretty much the same. I'm probably going to pass on that game. I don't even want to watch that game anyway. Next up, we got the Rams, who should absolutely destroy the New York Giants. Not only did the Giants look bad coming into the season, but they lost their best player, Saquon Barkley, so tough break. On top of not having Barkley, they're missing Jabril Peppers, which actually probably isn't a bad thing. Peppers sucks. And they don't have Sterling Shepard in there as well. So I got the Giants. They get a point for being at home, but then they lose that point for having injuries. I got the Rams as a 12.5 point favorite. Vegas has it at 13, so it's right about the same. So I should probably be a bookmaker. I'm drilling these lines, but I ain't betting on that one. Next up, we got the Vegas Raiders. I cannot wait to go out to Vegas and put money on the Raiders and actually walk into the stadium and watch the game. I cannot wait for that day to happen. We got the Raiders hosting the Buffalo Bills. The Bills have been definitely the most surprising team so far. They're 3-0. They played a couple of poop squads their first couple games, but they just gave it to the Rams last week, which the Rams are a really good team. Now, they got lucky. They should not have won that game. That pass interference call at the end was bogus, and that should have ended the game, but they were definitely smashing the Rams in the first half, and they've looked good. Their defenses look great. Allen's playing out of his mind. Bills, I think the Bills are for real. I mean, there's still a lot of time left in the season for them to screw it up and become the Buffalo Bills, but right now, they look good. So I got the Raiders right here in the middle of the pack at 0. I mean, they look good their first 2 weeks. I didn't think they'd be any good coming into the season at all. And then last week, they got smashed by the Pats, and they looked like basically how I thought they were going to look. So I keep them right in the middle because they have looked good, they have looked bad. They're kind of a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type of team. I had the Bills lower. At the beginning of the season, I was talking with a friend, what are the Bills more likely to do? Go 6-10 or 10-6? At the beginning of the year, I thought they'd be a 6-10 team, but they're looking much more like a 10-6, if not better right now. So I have them up equal with the Rams since they did just play like a really close game with them. So my spread on this game is Bills by 5.5. Vegas has this spread as only 3. So I'm definitely going to look at taking the Bills in this one. I think they got a slight edge. I think if the Bills keep playing like they do and the Raiders actually are who I thought they were, then I feel like I'll be able to cash that ticket. Next up, we got the Chiefs hosting the Bill Belichick's. The Chiefs don't really have any injury issues, but they are playing on a short week, so I gave them a +1. Now, the Chiefs are the only team that I give a -2 for home field advantage. On that first game of the season, it seemed like they had a ton of fans there. You could tell they had a ton of fans there because in the most embarrassing moment in Chiefs fans' history, they booed the moment of unity, but it did give proof that they actually have a lot of fans at the games. Arrowhead's always been a tough place to play, so they're the only team right now that I'm giving a -2 for home field advantage. So my spread on this game is 7.5. Vegas has it at 7 right now. I don't really have a problem betting on New England as an underdog, except I'm not betting against the Chiefs ever. There's no reason to lose your money that way. So, going to pass on that one. The night game, we got the Niners and the Eagles. At the beginning of this year, that looked like it was going to be a good game. But due to the Eagles' absolutely underwhelming performance so far this season, they are in the poop group with all the other poop teams that are underperforming. So the Niners are dealing with tons of injuries right now. Richard Sherman's on the IR. Garoppolo's questionable. D Ford is out. McKinnon's questionable. Coleman's out. Kittle's been banged up. Bosa's out for the season. Deebo Samuel's finally coming up, but he's been banged out at the beginning of the season. And they're missing a linebacker. So I gave the Niners a +3 on their injuries. And I gave the Eagles half a point for their injuries. And so my spread on this game is 7.5. And Vegas has it at 7. So again, I'm just drilling these lines today. Probably going to pass on that one. And then the Monday night matchup. Packers hosting the always fold Falcons. I cannot believe this franchise, the Atlanta Falcons. They fold like a futon. Always coming out to these strong leads and always getting smoked at the end. They're the tin man of the NFL. They got no heart. So my spread on this game is actually Packers -10. And Vegas has it at about 7.5 or 7 right now. Listen, I got no problem betting against the Falcons right now. I mean, they have the talent. They should be able to beat teams and cover against big spreads like that. But I got no problem betting against the Falcons, especially with Rodgers. Packers have looked amazing this year. They finally have a defense, which they haven't always had. And their wide receivers have been stepping up. And they definitely wasted a draft pick on Jordan Love. That's it for the NFL. Let's go ahead and check out some of these college games going on. Now, for college, I don't really have a power ranking system with this. I mean, there's too many teams to keep track of, for one. Second of all, with COVID going on, I had no idea what these teams are going to look like at the beginning of the season or if they were going to play at all. So really, I'm just shooting from the hip on these games. So Friday night, we got Campbell, Wake Forest, Louisiana Tech, BYU. No one cares. Florida, South Carolina, that could be a good game. Florida's favored by 18. I don't know anything about South Carolina. I'll have to watch that one to see what's going on with them. Probably going to pass on that. Tennessee's laying 12 points to Missouri. That seems crazy considering Tennessee's been a dumpster fire the last few years. Might consider taking Missouri there. Texas, TCU. Texas is favored by 11.5. The total on this game is 60. Last week alone, Texas scored over 60, and their offense is good. Their defense is terrible. I might look into taking the over on that one. I mean, when the team total is as high as what one team can score on their own, I mean, why not? Pitt is laying 14 points with NC State. I haven't seen NC State so far this year. Pitt's doing all right, I guess. I don't know. So I have a rule with betting. It's a very simple one. Always bet on Alabama no matter what. Alabama is laying 18 against Texas A&M. Every year it seems like Texas A&M comes in and they're like, oh, this is a team to watch. They can compete for the SEC this year. And then they go up against Alabama and get absolutely steamrolled. I made the mistake of not betting on Alabama last week and they crushed Missouri, I think it was. So I'm definitely taking Alabama this week. Roll Tide. Actually, I'm an Ohio State fan. And before the season started, when Big Ten was actually canceled, I already declared my allegiance to Bama. I love watching them dominate teams in and out. I know most fans of Ohio State hate Alabama for whatever reason. I don't care. I love watching them dominate people. Bama's my second favorite team right now since the Buckeyes are actually playing. Kansas State is laying 2.5 at home against Texas Tech. Kansas State's a weird team. They lost to an FCS team, and then they beat Oklahoma after Oklahoma was absolutely trashing them in the beginning. That's a team I like to stay away from, like a team that looks amazing one week and terrible the next week. I mean, that's pretty bad, losing to an FCS and then beating one of the best teams in D1. I'm going to pass on Kansas State for now. We'll see what they turn out to be. Memphis, SMU, that would probably actually be a good game for the non-Power 5. I don't really have a pulse on either of these teams, but I'll definitely check that one out. I mean, SMU is only given 2 points at home, so be worth watching. Mississippi State is laying 17 points against Arkansas. I don't know if you saw what the Pirate did last week, a.k.a. Mike Leach, but the Pirate and Mississippi State dropped over 600 yards passing on LSU, the reigning national champions. I mean, Mike Leach has been dealing with unathletic white boys from the Pacific Northwest for the last couple of years. Now he finally has some studs down at Mississippi State, and he's getting the job done. I love betting on the Pirate. I'm definitely taking them on Saturday. All right, this Auburn-Georgia game looks really good. Again, they just played their first games last week, and both teams won. I don't really know enough about the teams to make a bet, but that's definitely going to be the premier matchup of the weekend, and I'm very interested to see who's going to be able to pull out on that one. I mean, I think Georgia's the better team, but the line reflects that. They're laying 6.5, so I don't know if I'm going to bet this one, but definitely going to be a banger. All right, Oklahoma, Iowa State. Now, Oklahoma definitely blew it last week, but we know from Oklahoma year in, year out, they're a monster team, and they usually destroy people. Iowa State is always this overhyped team every year. They're never any good. People always try to pick them to win the Big 12. They never even come close. Oklahoma only laying 7 on the road seems small. I feel like Oklahoma should win by 3 touchdowns. They're way better than Iowa State. I think the only reason that line's smaller is because K-State pulled off a miracle last week against Oklahoma. I'm taking the Sooners in that one. And then we got Virginia, Clemson. Virginia's been pretty tough the last few years. I don't really know what they look like this year. They've been good ever since they got Bronco Mendenhall, who came from BYU. They've just been a more athletic and more competitive team over the years. Clemson has been huge favorites in their first 2 weeks against crummy opponents, and they didn't cover either of those big spreads. 4 touchdowns to a program like Virginia, who's getting a lot better. I mean, they're an average team in the ACC. I don't make it seem like they're competing for a title or anything, but 4 touchdowns. I think I'm going to roll with Virginia on this one for Saturday. Yeah, Clemson the last 2 weeks, they played Wake Forest week 1. They won 37-13, but the line was 34, so they didn't cover that. And they played the Citadel, which they beat 49-0, but the line was 50, so they didn't cover that either. I mean, they pretty much pushed. I'll throw a couple shekels on Virginia there. All right, next up, we got the NBA. The Miami Heat have been my favorite team during the playoffs so far. I called it right at the beginning of the Celtics series. The Celtics were favored pretty much throughout the whole series, but I definitely thought Miami was a better team. They have so many good players. They don't have like that one guy on offense that can just get the ball and just score nonstop. I mean, they do have Jimmy Butler who will close out games for him, but he's not like a LeBron or anything like that. So this line opened up with Lakers given 4.5, but it's already moved to 8 now. The first game, the Lakers were favored by 4.5 as well. I thought that line was a little low, and I was thinking about betting the Lakers, but I pussied out. And of course, they go on to wreck them by like 20 points. But this line of 8 seems about right. I mean, in the finals like this, it's probably better value to take the underdog, but I don't know, man. This Lakers team was definitely the best team during the regular season before COVID shut everything down. They didn't look that great in the exhibition games for Bubble Ball, but during the playoffs, I mean, clearly they look like the best team. They've been drilling teams. I might stay off this one, even though I think the Lakers are going to win. I could definitely see the Heat sneaking in and keeping it close in a lot of these games. So, I don't know, not a whole lot of value right there. Let's look at the total. All right, the total is 218. They scored 214 last game. Totals in the NBA, especially in the finals, I don't know, it's hit or miss. I don't really mess with totals too much in the NBA. Let's look at the box score from last game. Bayou only had 8. I know Bam's been pretty banged up. Butler dropped 23. Jay Crowder had 12. Hero and Nunn coming off the bench look good. Duncan Robinson dropped a goose egg. Yeah, he's not going to do that. And Dragic only had 6. So I don't think Dragic and Robinson are going to continue to struggle like this. However, the Lakers' defense is really good. And I know one of the things that people were saying before the playoffs started is that the Lakers don't have anybody to guard these smaller guards. But I don't know, shutting down Dragic like that is pretty tough. I feel like with the way the Heat's team is designed, so they don't have that one dominant primary scorer. They get a lot of their buckets off just playing good basketball, passing, cutting, taking good shots. However, if you shut down a team's point guard, they can't get into their offense and everything. So hopefully Butler and Hero and some of his other guys can take pressure off Dragic, but this series does not look good for the Heat. Lakers, on the other hand, Davis dropped 34 because he's a monster. LeBron James had 25, 13 rebounds, and 9 assists. And the great white hype, Alex Caruso, he dropped 10. Yeah, this next game I'm probably not going to take Friday night, but definitely going to watch. And finally, the presidential election. Now, I'm very politically neutral. I don't really have a dog in the fight. However, during COVID, when sports was locked down, I started following a lot more political stuff because the way that these knuckleheads in the political realm are competing with each other is about the best thing I can get when sports are gone. I've never actually voted in a national election. I only typically vote for things that are local or that actually affect me. In most cases, I don't really care who the president is going to be anyway, so I'm cool with whatever. But back in 2018, obviously the hate for Trump started ever since he got elected into office, and it's only kept growing. Then I watched this documentary on Netflix called Dirty Money about him just running all these con games on people and all the terrible business deals and things that he's done over the years. After that, watching that documentary, I was just like, there's no way this guy is going to win the presidency again after this information gets out. However, in that 2-year time frame, the Democratic Party has done everything they possibly can to look like the most insane, crazy group of individuals possible. No reasonable person would want to elect a leader from. And so it's a close race. Now, the Democrats are probably going to win the general election easily, but who knows what's going to go down with the Electoral College, especially after watching the last election. Anyway, after watching that documentary, I was like, all right, who from the Democratic Party is going to emerge as the actual candidate? I'm not super into politics, so I didn't know a lot of people on the list, but I saw Joe Biden on there. Now, at that time, Joe Biden had not announced that he was going to run for president, but in my mind, I was like, if this dude runs, he's definitely going to be the candidate for the Democrats. It's the only person that people like me even know, and of course he did. So at that time, I got him at plus 1,800, basically 18 to 1. So I put down a $20 bet, and if Biden wins the election, I cash out with $360. After watching this debate the other night, which was everything that it lived up to be, I really looked at it as like, hey, we have this super old guy who might not even live through the presidency, and then we have this immature, bratty child who's currently holding the position. This debate was absolutely ridiculous. If you put a gun to my head, I think Biden's the more mature and reasonable person, so I'd probably take him.
I want to congratulate Big Ten football. It's back.
Wait, never mind. Voting for Trump. All right, y'all. Thanks for joining in for Throwdown Thursday. We're going to do this every Thursday, talking about sports betting. If you like my picks, go ahead and holler down in the comments. And if you think I'm an idiot and you want to argue, go ahead and hit up the comments too. Thanks for sticking around. Have a good one.